This is the second video and guide for our Advent program on Fratelli, tutti, the last encyclical of the Holy Father. We hope you enjoyed the first installment and that the questions help you to get into a deeper reflection on the teachings of the Holy Father. Again, we are not lecturing on the encyclical, we're just offering some guidance as we read it together. And hopefully find ways to question ourselves as we try to apply this great teaching to our lives. After a realistic analysis of our present situation, which the Holy Father blames on the installment of a common culture whose main goal is to remove obstacles for economic profit, which produces polarization and marginalization at a large scale, and before offering lines of action, as he calls them, in chapter 2, the Holy Father identifies the basic decision that any individual needs to make. Do we care for others? Do we care for the stranger? Do we care for those who are stranger to us or to our race or group or economic status or nationality? Or we don't, especially those most in need. At the basis, at the foundation of any possible change, very much a topic of Advent, the Holy Father identifies our basic decision to care for others or don't. First, the Holy Father reminds us of our tradition in the Old Testament and the New Testament, a call to care for the stranger. But then, as the title of the chapter reflects, Stranger on the Road, the Holy Father looks at the famous parable of the Good Samaritan to help us identify that basic question. I don't need to re-explain the parable. The only thing I would add, if I may do so, as we reflected in a homily not long ago, Dr. Martin Luther King, the last day of his life, the night before his assassination, took this parable also and also spoke of a question. The problem is not what happens, the question is not what happens to the person if we don't stop and help. The problem is what happens to us. I think the Holy Father makes the same point when he reminds us that the religious affiliation of those who didn't stop in the parable. He warns people of faith who often find, many people of faith who find in their faith at least tolerance to selfish and human behaviors and reaction to human suffering. Chapter 3 could be explained very easily. You read it and you see that the Holy Father is calling for a deep fraternity. In contrast with the title of chapter 1, which was Dark Clouds Over a Closed World, the title of chapter 3 speaks of an open world. Envisaging and engendering an open world. These are big words. I checked the translation in the original, in Italian, and the Spanish translation, and it means, you know what the words mean, to imagine and give birth to an open world. And the Holy Father proposes we do this with understanding and actively working for social fraternity. I want to remind you what we did at Sacred Heart last year, these cards, when we did a series on the principles, the 7 principles of Catholic social teaching. The Holy Father is based on this Catholic social teaching tradition, reminds us that we are made to be social, to relate to others. We are created to be with others in community. And for the Holy Father, another definition of love that he gives, love means to go beyond ourselves. We grow through relationship with others. Love is not self-referential. And we have to learn to love beyond our family, our little group. We have to learn to love everyone. Openness to other, the Holy Father understands openness to others as a drive. It drives me to be open to others, especially to those most in need. The call, then he calls us to a a universal openness that is only possible if we practice authentic social friendship. We could continue speaking about the letter, but I wanted to emphasize one part in paragraph 115. It says, we are responsible for the fragility of others as we strive to build a common future. What a beautiful way to put it. We are responsible for the fragility of others. In opposition with the self-made man or woman that is so, the individualism that is so rampant in our society. All this fraternity, an open world, it's about love, and it's about being able to recognize the dignity of the other, the human person, even those that cannot produce for society as well as others. I believe that's the point of the chapter that we are discussing now. The Holy Father concludes the chapter by telling us a very big truth, and that's where it will give direction to the rest of the encyclical also, that the changes that we need in society can not only be about individuals, that's where it starts, but then he speaks about the community of nations and the fraternity that needs to be created within nations, with solidarity between different areas of the same country, and then between nations also. And he concludes the chapter, as he did in Laudato Si, his previous encyclical, reminding us of the responsibility we have for the common home, for the ecology, as a way to understand that it's not just for some, it's for all, and not just for now, but for the rest of humanity in the future as well. The Holy Father has a very interesting call also to good moral values, which is also a very important point in this chapter. And chapter 4, a heart open to the whole world. It's the last chapter we will do on this second session. The Holy Father begins by saying, if the conviction that all human beings are brothers and sisters is not to remain an abstract idea, but to find concrete embodiment, then numerous issues emerge. And he speaks about immigration in the whole encyclical, but especially focuses on the plight of immigrants here in chapter 4. It's one of these topics that we have preached before, that we can have opinions, but we sometimes keep it at a theoretical level. And behind the issues of immigrations, there is always the experience of concrete individuals that live with us. So one thing I recommend for people is to get to know people who are immigrants, like myself. It's one of these topics that is a very hot topic, political topic, but it's been always in the Catholic tradition to recognize the right of people to migrate, to look for a better life for them and their families. And then the Holy Father refers especially to immigration that happens when people's lives are at stake, when people are fleeing for war or persecution, natural catastrophes, trafficking. Migrants should be welcome and protected and supported and integrated in society. What he calls unnecessary immigration needs to be avoided. He means that there should be work on the countries of origin also for people to live with dignity in those countries as well, to create opportunities for people to live with dignity. But at the same time, he insists that we need to respect the right to seek a better life elsewhere, something that many of us have done or our families have done in the past. In receiving countries, the right balance needs to be found between the protection of the citizens' rights, but the guarantee that people can be welcome also. Specifically, the Pope points to several steps, especially in response to those who are fleeing grave humanitarian crises. He mentions the increase of simplification of the system to grant visas, to open humanitarian corridors, to assure lodging, security, essential services, to offer opportunities for employment and training, to favor family reunification, the protection of minors, and to guarantee religious freedom. All these aspects that he wants to emphasize in particular. The Holy Father identifies the problem of migration as an international problem that should have an international solution. There should be collaboration within the countries, an international solution to this very important issue. Finally, I believe that the Holy Father has a call to avoid fear of immigration because it affects the purity of our own culture. He reminds us that we ought to welcome the fruitful exchange that migrants bring to our community. We need to realize that people coming from other places enrich our own culture as well. We need to make sure that all individuals, regardless of where they were born, feel part of the larger human family. With this, we conclude this second video for chapters 2, 3, 4 and the corresponding guide. And I'll see you next week when we go to the chapters 5 and 6 of this encyclical. I hope you enjoyed the session and see you next week.